Hey there everybody. Gather round, I have a funny story to tell you guys about a game of Rimworld I built using preset characters based around me and all of my friends. And the story's quite a doozy. It has a couple twists and turns you may not expect, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So, here we go. So, after a drunken night of Mario Party up on a spaceship out in space, we blacked out inside of our sleeping pods and were promptly jettisoned down to a remote and desolate world on what appears to be a desert peninsula bordered by the beaches leading to the great planetary sea to the north. And in case you were wondering, yes, of course, Brando won yet again. Frank, being a woodsman and our consummate herbalist, set about sowing crops that we would use to survive out here in the harsh wilderness and hopefully grow enough food to sustain us for however long we would be stranded out here. Enough time had passed that we had actually started getting a little comfortable here, so we decided we were going to give this place a name. Our faction would be called the High Rollers, and this settlement would be called 999 Coins. Something actually unexpected happened a little bit later. Another survivor in another crash pod landed nearby, Norman. He was labeled as a gardener. We decided we would take him in, nurse him back to health, and convince him to try to join us. He was very badly injured, so I had both of our medically trained personnel tend to him. D had been very stressed out during his stay here at 999 Coins, and during a heat wave in the dead heat of summer decided that the best way to cool off would be to wander up towards the northern beach, lay face down in the sand, and just sleep it off. Just sleep off all of his stress. A thunderstorm had rolled in, and we had forgotten to actually bring D back inside the encampment. So he still lay outside, sleeping face down in the sand, and listening to the soothing waves crashing in front of him. D managed to sleep off his grumpiness, made his way back to camp, and then proceeded to immediately get involved in a brokering a deal with a band of traders from the Council of the Green Armadillo. They were a medieval technology society who came by. And again, we didn't really have anything to trade. Except for one thing of value. It turns out that Norman, while being in our care, was completely available for sale to these people. They seemed to have no qualms about taking another human being as a slave. So, D, being the entrepreneur he was, spied a smoothbore musket that he wanted, and it cost more than just about anything else we owned, except for poor little Norman. So he did what any good entrepreneur would do. He sold a slave to buy a gun, which he then quickly snatched up for his own. We had a rescue signal go up. We picked it up and someone was calling for our help. So Roku and I teamed up and we decided we would head out into the wastes and try to rescue this poor unfortunate fellow. One of the neighboring tribes decided to attempt to raid us, sending only one naked pyromaniac, 15-year-old, named Isamu, armed with only a steel club. We had quite an unusual shipment crash land on us, too far to our west on the edge of the encampment. An entire cargo pod full of micropenises burst open and spilled forth its contents onto our beach. I wasn't exactly sure what to do with these. The raider made his way toward his encampment and was quickly subdued by well-placed marksman shots and the caltrops we had set out. As we went in to collect him and add him as a new prisoner to our now empty prison, a herd of what appeared to be moose wandered by. While he was under our care, I attempted to have our doctors treat him for pyromania. Unfortunately, we all suffered from autism and didn't have the necessary social skills to completely cure it. However, I did find a use for these micropenises. I immediately ordered our doctors to sew these micropenises onto our prisoner. We finally made it to the distress call site, where we found Gracie Boone laying helplessly on the ground. We argued a bit over whether or not we should just strip her and leave her for dead and take her clothes, or we should rescue her. I won out in the end, so we decided to... We had a new addition arrive to our little encampment, Hakuja, a 15-year-old psychopath who loved killing people with knives. I decided to keep a close eye on her, as well as a healthy amount of distance. D managed to trip on the caltrops defending our encampment and give himself a free nose piercing. Roku and I managed to make it back to base, suffering from severe malnutrition due to running out of food along the trip. We also somewhere lost the rescue that we were supposed to be bringing back here. Roku doesn't seem to have any idea of where she got off to. I decide not to worry about it any further. We have other concerns. Other concerns, like, for instance, our prisoner, who was still suffering from pyromania, deciding to set his entire room on fire. I ordered Hakuja to run in there and either subdue or disarm him, which she did not seem able to do, so instead I had her try to put out the fires. It was unsuccessful, everything in the room burned, and Isamu, I locked him in there and sealed the doors so that he could burn to death in the fires of his own creation. Shortly thereafter, we were attacked with another raid, this time some of them being armed with guns. Because of the skill of Frankadu and Brando, we were able to drive them off with some quick sharpshooting. All of them were killed, and we gave them a hasty burial just inside the walls of the encampment. Seemed like a group of Labrador retrievers wandered in and immediately took a liking to us in the encampment, so they decided to join up with us. I figured the best use for them was to have D train them to become rescue and work animals. A naked wandering woman named Manny, whose job title was Nymph, decided to join us. I decided that, more working hands were better than having fewer, so I decided to leave her here, although her job title makes me wonder what exactly she does for a living. Well, I guess that answers my question. Wonder no further, she was sleeping around with Frankadu out in his sandstone brick hut. It seems that she was vat grown as some sort of pleasure slave. I decided this would be a fine addition to our encampment. I'm happy to keep her around. And at last, the encampment began to slowly starve. It turns out that barren desert soil near an ocean in a desert biome is quite bad for growing crops. And so most of our crops had stopped actually producing at around the 50 to 80% growth mark. So we began to feel the hunger pains so severely that we were bedridden, and I ordered that all of the unripened strawberries be cut down and immediately fed to those who were starving. And that was when I noticed, immediately to our east, in the caves we hadn't explored yet, there were small hives of spiders producing edible jellies. I set up a kill zone with our sharpshooters and attempted to lure out the colony so that we could shoot them all down and plunder their hive for their delicious, delicious jelly. The plan had failed. Horribly. However, Roku was playing possum, and he used us as sacrifices to distract the mega spider hive just long enough so that he could sneak in and try to grab some of the jelly for himself. His selfish gluttony had been the downfall of us all. Roku is too enraptured with consuming the royal jelly and doesn't notice the mega spider hive returning, so they immediately down him with a couple more swipes, and we are all at their mercy. One by one, we slowly bleed to death outside of the spider hive, infection and blood loss setting in, and such is the end of the colony of 999 coins. After our demise, we had one more raid come in and attempt to destroy us. However, in a savage attack on one of our Labrador retrievers, they flung a grenade at it and injured themselves in the blast. Apparently, the injury was so severe that the only raider who walked in and smashed all of our stuff collapsed immediately outside of our encampment and bled to death on the ground. I can think of no better ending than the story of 999 coins, than a death trap who even claimed one person who managed to make it inside and whose sole mission was to destroy us. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll catch you next time.